For today, we're going to have a chat. We're going to talk about all things market when it comes to what I'm learning, what I enjoy, and what I don't like, and what I could do better, and what I'm really doing well. And so, hopefully, if you are doing markets, you'll be able to get some nuggets from this video. I do have another video called 10 tips for a successful vendor event. If you are looking for a more in-depth video, I will link that video in the description. But for today, it's going to be a very comfortable chat, and I'm just going to share some takeaways or some things that I want to implement. Now, remember, I've been doing markets for 5 years now. My very first time doing markets, I did 20 markets in a row. So I also have a playlist on that process, and you'll be able to see my very first market, which was a mess. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, something that I wanted to talk about from last year, I guess it's an area of opportunity. It's a weakness. I was trained that you call weaknesses an area of opportunity. So let's talk about one area of opportunity that I face when I'm doing these markets, especially when it comes to setup. I always overthink my setup, and I don't plan them ahead of time. I always think when I get there, inspiration will strike, and I will figure out what needs to be done. Well, that leads to a lot of decision fatigue when I get there, and it usually has me rushing down to the final minute to finish my setup. And sometimes I'm not even done when the door is open or when the market starts. So one thing I want to do this year is eliminate that. So I want to think through my displays and my setup. So I do have a notebook, and I'm actually writing things down, and I'm writing down general ideas of how I want things to be set up. And the good thing is that the first market, I have 8 hours to set up. So that will help me to be able to do the setup. And then I'm going to take pictures, and I will duplicate that same setup for the next market, which only gives me 4 hours for setup, 2 hours the night before and 2 hours the morning of. So last year, you guys wanted to see a video of my market setup, and I had all intentions of showing you guys. But what happened is that I set up my tripod and I got to work, but I was so busy overthinking. It took way too long to get my setup done that by the time the market opened, I still had tubs of things in the middle of the floor, and I was just shoving them under the tables at this time so that customers could come in. And as I was doing that, customers were shopping the vignettes, that by the time I thought, oh, let me get a quick clip of the setup, it had already been shopped. So last year, we had this wonderful scenario where within 10 minutes, I sold out of those nativity houses. They were a big part of the setup. There was 20 of them. And so there was a line of people lined up within 10 minutes. Everyone had one of those, and people were asking if I had more. And unfortunately, I didn't. I only had the 20. And so there was a line looped around the booth, and they were all checking out for those. So there was no time for me to get any photos or even footage of the setup. But I really, really love that part. It's like my favorite part. And when I watch other creators, I really love to see that part. And so I hate that I keep robbing myself of that opportunity. So this year, the goal is to not do that. So if you have any tips for me on how I can be more prepared for my setup, I would really love some of those. And I'm going to work really, really hard to make sure that I have that footage this year, that I get to show you how my setup looks. Something else that I wanted to share that worked last year that I want to do again this year. So I always aim to get a 10 by 20 booth if possible. If it's available, I always aim for those. I've done the 10 by 10s and they just do not work out. So one thing I did last year that was really smart, I had my checkout station at the end of the booth, but I put a 6-foot table, and on that table is where we would do the wrapping as the customers would check out. So having that table there created a barrier from the booth. So anyone that was checking out was forced to line up outside of the booth. And that allowed for more people to be able to come into the booth while we were still checking out, and that worked really well. So I plan on doing that again, and I'll make sure to show you how I do that setup this time around for sure. Another thing that I do that works really well for me, and if you can, I know it may not be possible, is having a support system. So when I do my markets, I have a minimum of 4 people working the booth. Myself and Rodney's usually there. Now, Rodney does the heavy lifting if someone needs help to the car. And this year, we're adding some furniture pieces into the inventory. So if anyone needs things carried to the car, carried out, or if I need things moved around that are heavy, things moved from spaces that are too high, that's where Rodney comes in, and he's really helpful and really good at that. And then I have my little big sister Janet that you guys met like a few videos back. Now, Janet usually does the checkouts. Either Janet or Mariah. They're both really, really good with numbers. They're PhDs, so I expect, they're doctorates, PhDs and doctorates. So I expect them to like really know their stuff. But also Janet is a pharmacist. So she is really accurate, you know, by trade, by nature. She's really on point with the numbers. So she is a perfect person to work the register. And then Mariah also is a business owner, and she too is really good with the numbers. So those two, I usually will alternate. If they're both there, good. If not, sometimes I can't get both of them, but they'll take turns coming. So I usually have either of those on the cash register. And this year, it looks like it's going to be Janet all through. And I really like engaging and interacting with the customers. So that is another way of saying that I like to run my mouth. And so I like to talk to the customers. I get to meet the people. We have a good time. And then my favorite thing to do is to wrap the items. So I usually have that table set up. As they are checking them out, I'm wrapping. I like to make sure everything is wrapped nice and pretty. Put it in the prettiest bag that I can find or whatever I have available, and then just, you know, hand it over to the customers. So I really like to keep myself, you know, flexible, and sometimes I have to go and fluff and restage, and so not having to worry about the cash register really helps out a lot. But I know not everyone can have that many people with them, but if you can, I would really recommend you doing that. It has been a game changer for me. I've done markets when I was first starting. By the way, when I first started doing these markets, I did 20 markets in a row every week for 20 weeks just so that I can get my feet wet. I do have a playlist where you can see all of those. It's called Craft Shows, so check out that playlist. You'll be able to see my very first market. Oh, I'm embarrassed to even send you to that video. You guys, it was very green. But that's the point of this, is that we learn and we grow, and we keep improving. So be sure to check out that playlist if you want to see how all of this started. When we do markets, I mean, people have a lot of things. People are buying a lot of things. Now, all of my inventory is not small stuff. So one thing to think about is to have a space where you can hold merchandise. So for me, I have another 6-foot table that is designated just for that. And then we use the space on top of it and the space underneath it. And there's a nice tablecloth, so if we need to shove things underneath, you don't even see them, but we can also put things on top. Now, I found that really helps boost your sales, because let's say those lanterns or those signs that I have, they're so big, right? So if someone is still shopping, they don't want to walk around holding that big old lantern, and they don't want to go back to their car. So they will ask if I can hold it, and of course I do. Obviously, we take payment first. Once they pay, I have a receipt book. I will write just very basic, their name and their item number, and I'll tear off the bottom part and I'll give it to them. I'll take the top part of the receipt and I'll staple it to the bag, and we will shove it under the table or wherever we can, and then they come back for it much later. So that's something you should think about if you're not doing, because it really does help improve your sales. One other thing that I want to talk about is branding. Well, this year I am stepping up my game just a little bit. So I printed new business cards. Now, this picture looks familiar, doesn't it? It is the same picture that I have on my YouTube banner, on my website, on my Facebook, and on my Instagram, and now on my business cards. And the reason I'm doing this is because I have a really difficult name to pronounce, and sometimes people have a hard time remembering it. Although my name is not that difficult. It's only 6 letters, and it's Hasfa. But I get it. And so having the same picture on all of my platforms really helps for recognition. Now, if I ever do change those pictures, I would have to change them all across the board, and I haven't done so yet, but this one works just fine. So I got my business cards. Yes, I was feeling a little vain this time around, so the whole front of the card is my picture, and it's got my name, it's got my business name, and then on the back, it's got all of my information along with the phone number for local customers. And it's got my logo and my Facebook, YouTube, and all of my social media. Now, the other thing is that people always ask me, when I'm out there doing markets, I like to tell people that I do have a YouTube channel. And so right here, there's a QR code, and that code says, "Ooh, it's trying to scan." No, don't do it. Okay, let me see. Will it do it? I don't know. Probably not. Anyway, so this QR code takes them to my YouTube channel. So that way they can see my story, my business, and everything pertaining to my brand. Now, like I said, connection is really important to me. I do a lot of things with scripture, and there have been times where I've stopped in the middle of the market to say a prayer with somebody because the Holy Spirit just brings people my way, and it's never coincidence. And sometimes people come in and they need something, or I need something from them, and I mean that spiritually. And so we connect, and sometimes I will do that. We'll stop and we'll have a word of prayer, or have a word, whatever's needed. And so having this QR code now, we'll be able to send them to my story. If you guys are new here, I was born Muslim and I found Christ at a very young age. And so I do have a video on my journey from Islam to Christianity. And so being able to share that story with my followers is also really important. Storytelling is a big part of what I do. And so I want to be able to continue to share that in a way that is memorable. And so this year, having that QR code will be able to take them straight to my YouTube channel, and hopefully I could get some new subscribers at the market. So yeah, that's it, I think. Is there anything else? All right, friends, thank you so much for watching. If you have any tips for me and the people watching this video, please leave them in the comments below. If you have any questions or anything that you would like more information on that I wasn't able to cover, also leave that in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you are finding any value in these videos, please comment, like, share, and subscribe. Help me to grow this channel and help other fellow creators find this content